The regular City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority meeting is now in session. Today is Tuesday, December 13th, 2016. It is 6 p.m. Please rise. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Obviously, we have no one for the invocation, so we'll go to roll call.
Council Authority Member for District 2, Cindy Fossey is absent. Council Authority Member District 4, Darlene Barber Martinez.
Here.
Council Authority Member at Large Cal Campbell.
Here.
Council Authority Member at Large Leanne Jones Cruz.
Here.
Mayor Chair Richard D. O'Brien.
Here. Agenda changes. There will be no changes to the agenda tonight. Conflict of interest. Any council authority member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time.
Mayor, I have a conflict of interest with item 5.1 and will be recusing myself at that time.
Thank you. Public comments. No action can be taken. At this time, the public members may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For the record purposes, state your name and city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the City Council LRA Board. Do we have public comments tonight?
Am I on? Nope. My wife's going to be upset if I'm not. Scott McRitchie, my city residence is Riverbank. It's again about the water thing. I work with St. Vincent de Paul, and this week, in an hour, we paid out $1,000 for water bills, about $100 a pop. There's 10 people that came in. 3 were people that about this time of year come in every year because their jobs in the fields have stopped and the other ones haven't started. And we try to help them with it. We've got 7 others that hadn't appeared on our books before, so I don't know if the water department's sending them over to us or not, but we're starting to run out of money. So I spoke briefly with Mayor O'Brien regarding an idea that I think he had and I had, and that is that we still need to go, and I'm still harping on this thing, of going out with monthly billings. So a way around it would be like the tax bill. They send out 2 parts to it, and you pay one now and you pay one later. So the same thing, we could do the same thing, bill bi-monthly, every other month, and have 2 parts to it. So this part has to be paid by the first month, this part has to be paid by the second month. And then the new bill comes out, and again, it has 2 more. So that any given month, the citizen only has to pay about $50, $60, $70 instead of $150, which, again, the people who are generally low income don't have a lot of money. They spend what they have in a month, and then the next month comes and they got the double bill. So I listened to Maricela a couple times ago, and she said they were going to straighten out the water and so on and so forth, and then go back to bi-monthly billing in January. So it appears that my appearances up here have done nothing, and so I thought I'd come up with this concept. And in that way, the billing costs, the meter reading costs, all the other stuff is the same. The cash flow may be a little bit better or worse depending on how whether it comes on the heels of one earlier or later. But it would certainly put a less strain on the citizens. And like I say, for us who are trying to help out, we're not going to be able to do anything more than what we've been doing, because $1,000 in an hour is not something we can sustain for very long. So anyhow, that's my idea.
Any other further public comments? Okay, please, come on up.
Well, I'm Father Misael Avila from Pastor at St. Francis of Rome Church nearby. And there's, due to the recent presidential elections results, there are many people in my community who don't have documents, and they're basically very afraid of what might happen to them. The possibility of being deported, we don't know what's going to happen. So we had a immigration forum recently at my church, and there was an immigration lawyer there, Officer Eric Torres, I believe, from the police department was there too. Darlene was there too, to answer people's questions and concerns. And one lady asked about the possibility of Riverbank becoming a sanctuary city. So it's something that hopefully we can discuss in the near future, and I just want to thank Darlene for being there. I think her presence made a big difference. People were very appreciative of her presence there. One lady commented to me after the meeting that the fact that she was there meant for her that the city really care about the community's concerns. So thank you for being there. And the last thing I want to say is that in September, as some of you might remember, we had a presentation from my parish. We talked about the possibility of putting a crosswalk on Highway 108 because it's very dangerous for people to cross. And I believe Caltrans is finalizing a traffic analysis. And so hopefully very soon you will let us know the results, your recommendations. But again, I want to thank Darlene because she's been following up on that. So thank you again for your support, and hopefully we will get the support of everyone. Thank you.
Any further public comments? Seeing none, do you have any comments on anything that was presented?
Yes, with regards to the water billing, we are currently evaluating proposals with regards to the comment made by Mr. McRitchie and the comments that you had made in the past, Mayor, about providing a double coupon for the billing. So we're looking at pricing with our current vendor, as well as seeking pricing from other vendors for the possible opportunity of having some cost savings there.
And if you do that, make sure that you put out literature, YouTube video, everything else.
Yes, certainly. And what we would do first is an educational component to all of our residents prior to beginning the program.
Thank you. Consent calendar, consistent of item 3A, waive readings. Item 3B, approval of November 22nd, 2016 City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority minutes. Item 3C, award contract for the citywide classification and compensation study to CPHR Consulting and authorize the interim city manager, director of finance to execute the agreement. Is there any comments or wanting to pull any item on the consent calendar? Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment on or pull items from the consent calendar? Seeing none, I bring it back to the City Council for recommendation and or resolution.
I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
We have a motion to approve and a second for the consent calendar.
Yes.
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 Yes. Item 5.1, the first reading and introduction by title only of a proposed ordinance amending Chapter 31, City Officials of Title III, Administration of the Riverbank Municipal Code.
Mayor, Tom Hallinan, City Attorney for the City of Riverbank, will present this item, and I will be recusing myself.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council. During the process of recruiting and hiring a new city manager, the council approved the reorganization of the current Director of Finance's duties to include interim city manager duties, excuse me, as a temporary solution. However, the city does not currently have a formal mechanism for a specific deputy or assistant city manager. So on November 8th, 2016, you again provided direction to staff and us to take the necessary steps to create an assistant city manager position and make the corresponding changes to the Riverbank Municipal Code. The proposed ordinance creates such an assistant city manager position within the city's organizational structure, establishing a clear succession plan in the event the city manager is unable to perform his or her duties for any reason, and will help facilitate the internal allocation of duties among city staff. The assistant city manager will provide supervision, direction, and leadership to department directors and managers, assist in the city's annual budget process, implement directives and policies from the city manager, act in the absence of the city manager, and assist in managing the city's day-to-day operational issues associated with the overall functions of the city. Additionally, the assistant city manager will assist the city manager in meeting and carrying out the goals and tasks as identified by the city council. That's about half the report. I won't read the technical section items unless you have any questions. And with that, I would submit it for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the city council? This is a public meeting. Is there any comments from the public? Seeing none, I bring it back to the city council to adopt the first reading and introduction of the ordinance change.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept item 5.1 as stated.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion to introduce the first reading, for the first reading and introduction of the proposed ordinance of item 5.1, and a second.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
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 Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. New business consisting of LRA item 6.1, accept report on status of the LRA budget for the first quarter fiscal year 2016-17, to accept reports on the status of LRA budget for the first quarter 2016-17.
Mayor, members of the LRA Board, Melissa Holdaway with the Local Redevelopment Authority will be presenting this item.
Evening, Chair and Authority members. I bring forth the first quarter budget. I apologize for the lateness of it, but we've been working on some issues with finance and the shortfall of their staff. So we've gotten it together and I'm presenting it to you tonight. Since you've had a chance to review the numbers, I'll just shortly go over some of the things that are standing out. As far as the Fund 197 revenue, the DoD caretaker revenue, we've been working with the Army extensively trying to get this contract in place, and now we've gotten a mechanism where it's not going to be part of the lease agreement. It's going to be a standalone agreement, so that is being worked out now, and we should be receiving money the first of the year. The administrative expenditures are pretty standard. The first quarter, we didn't have too many. You'll see a change in some of this, the budget in mid-year, making some adjustments to some of the line items, especially in the facility expenditures. The common area cost with the AQH leaving the facility, they were a high user of our electrical, and so we're going to see a change in that. I'll be bringing that forth at mid-year, so that's going to reduce that significantly. As far as the other line items, they're pretty much standard and what we've gone through in the past history, so they'll be about the same. Fund 198, the OEA grant, that does fund our salaries and administrative costs. We are down to the end of this grant as of December, but we have submitted a supplemental to try to get us through January through June with the with the lease agreement and the MOA not being signed still, so hopefully we'll be able to get that funding to help support our staff and administrative expenses. We should know something about that at the end of this year. Fund 199, that's our ESCA number 2. This ESCA is different than ESCA number 1. ESCA number 1, we got all the funds up front. This one, we're getting it on an accrual basis, so we get to collect money up front and spend it down per CLIN. The CLIN in the contract it's considered a contract line item number, and that's what we're working off of with our consultants out there. And we had a slowdown with EPA, and so it's kind of slowed those CLINs down, but we've ramped back up after getting approval for the EPA. So you'll see a huge jump in the expenses and also our cash requests going forth through the end of the year. Right now, we did have $8 million in our line item. We've gone through about $2 million in this last quarter and the first quarter, and the second quarter, you're going to see a huge jump there. So that'll be coming in mid-year. Statement of revenues and expenses through September 30th is $118,000 in the red. We're good. I mean, not the red, sorry. We're good. We're on the good side of it. We had more revenue than expenditures. Sorry.
In the red, that's good.
I was looking at our approved budget, sorry. Our structural deficit from the ESCA number 2 will cover that deficit, by the way, with the carryover, the cash that we have on hand. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I bring this back to the City Council to accept the report.
I make a motion that we accept the report.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to accept item 6.1 and a second.
Yes.
Yes.
Cruz.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Item 6.2, approval of the interim city manager to enter into a consulting contract with De Novo Planning Group for environmental EIR work associated with the Crossroads West Specific Plan, General Plan Amendment, Development Agreement, and Annexation.
Mayor and members of the City Council, since 2013, city staff and city contract planning staff have been working closely with the developers of what we have started to call as Crossroads West. They have been working on their specific plan and are eager to move forward with the second phase of their plan. And so tonight we have John Anderson from the firm of J.B. Anderson Land Use Planning, who has been assisting the city with this project.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. John Anderson, contract planner with the city of Riverbank, here tonight to talk about Crossroads West EIR contract with De Novo Group. Staff report is fairly clear on the process we went through. One of the steps that we have to deal with, we have an advanced funding agreement on this project which ensures that all the expenses associated with the project are covered by the development group. We were asked and we performed a request for proposals from certified EIR consultants in the area. We received 5 proposals. We ended up going through an interview process, and by mutual agreement, both the development team and the city agreed to go with De Novo Consulting Group. Their proposal is in this package. The contract has been vetted with legal staff as well as the development group, and we're ready to proceed when we have a final plan. I wish I could say we have a final plan, but we don't. As of right now, we've taken some traffic counts. It was critical for us to get in the field and take live traffic counts at key intersections before the holiday season, so we had very good information to be inserted into our environmental document. However, we're still waiting for the latest version of the plan to come out of the development team's hands. I'm told it's going to hit my desk probably some part, the first or second week of January. We'll have to see. So anyway, so that's where we are. It's a pretty standard contract. City Attorney's Office has gone over it. It breaks the contract obligations up into the pieces that are consistent with the work that's got to be performed. So it's consistent with the advanced funding agreement that the council had previously acted upon, and that's pretty much all I have to say at this point. So it's we're asking for immediate action by the council. I felt it was appropriate. This comes back to the council kind of as an update on the project, rather than just folding it under the advanced funding agreement. It's already covered there, but I wanted to bring it back to you as well. So it's an opportunity for planning staff to give you an update on the project. So that's why it's being presented to you tonight.
I have one very, very brief addition, one word to the agreement. I just received the originals from a planning director, and that's in the indemnification section. Add the word defend, so it read indemnify, comma, defend, and hold harmless. It's important because we don't want to get into a fight of who's the lawyer's going to be after the fact and have to pay, as you know, what could be a large bill. I don't anticipate that, but just I just happen that's one thing I always check for, and I would just recommend we add that.
I think that complies with the intent of the agreement anyway. So anyway, that's all I have.
Other questions?
I have a quick question. Do we have a time frame as to how long this will take? Approximate?
Well, yeah, so time frame. So we've been talking about the project for almost 3 years now. The advanced funding agreement was approved almost 2 years ago. You know, the applicants have control of the process at this point, in that they are under obligation to deliver a document to us that we're 100% happy with. And that hasn't happened yet. So we're hopeful, based on this latest round of comments, which they received last summer, that we'll be in a position to move forward with the project. So the EIR process, once we say go with the EIR process, it can take as little as 6 months and as much as a year. It really all depends on how everything comes together. We've attempted to address some of the issues that may cause the project to be drawn out from a time perspective. So I mentioned earlier that we've already done the traffic counts, which are very critical for this. So so we've done some things, but at this point we're kind of waiting for the developer to, put together their project, to refine it, and then for us to be in a position that we agree with it, and then we can move forward through the environmental process. So it's anywhere from 6 months to a year. I mean, that's the response, but it's very much depends upon what kind of end product we get out of the developers once they respond to all the comments that we've given them for the second or third round. Yes. So
You're not done yet. I do have one quick one. How close are we in an agreement with the developers? What are they lacking?
I think we're pretty close. One of the major issues we had was dealing with some of the densities that were anticipated with the original general plan, the general plan of 2008. We're going to end up, the resolution to that is that we're going to end up creating a specific plan, general plan designation, which is new to the general plan, but what it does is it describes what is the intent within this defined area. In other words, how many homes, how much commercial, what's the population, and then within that defined area, they can kind of shift those land uses around the site, around the acreage, which is to meet what their goals are, to meet what the city's goals are, for that matter. So so that's one resolution. The other is that we're going to be, or this project would be proposing to expand the Riverbank sports complex by at least another 11 acres. So what we wanted is and by the way, that 22-plus acre site would be used not only for recreational purposes, but they're also talking about, a municipal water well site, and they're also talking about using a portion of that area for a storm drain. So what we wanted a concept design to go along with the overall plan that kind of showed us how all this would work, not in construction documents, but just in theory, and to be wrapped into this document. So we're hopeful that we end up getting that type of document through the work that they're doing now. And then of course, when you deal with these kinds of large planning areas, you have, I want to say, these interfaces. And in this case, we have an interface between a regional sports complex and a residential neighborhood. And we need to make sure we understand what that looks like, because the regional sports complex is going to bring with it traffic, noise, lighting, these types of things. So we want to make sure the neighborhood that's planned adjacent to it, is planned appropriately from the get-go, and we're not having to deal with stuff in retrospect, after the fact, so to speak. So anyway, so those are some of the issues that we're hopeful that they'll be able to address. I think we've come to resolution on most of those. Again, I haven't seen the final document. Well, of course, and then one of the other issues is somewhere in the planning area, they're going to have to identify a site for a new fire station. That's very, very critical for public services, within this area of Riverbank. And the Stanislaus Consolidated Fire District has been very clear that they want to make sure that within this project area, they have a new fire station. So we're working hand in hand with the fire district to make sure that happens. So that is another critical component of the plan that we haven't seen, that we hope is in there, and so we can move forward. So,
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the traffic study that's going on, and what's the nature? I mean, in order for the traffic study to be complete, you have to take real live counts. So that's what they did. They took real live counts before the holiday season. The traffic counts get skewed one way or the other if you try to take those counts during the holiday season. So you try to take it in non-holiday seasons, but certainly when you have all the school traffic happening. So that's what we've done. So we've collected raw data. Quite frankly, that's all we've done. We've collected the raw data. So the traffic study hasn't started yet because we don't have a defined project. But we've collected the raw data that would allow that traffic study to move forward without hesitation. Okay? Okay.
Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I bring it back for item 6.2, for approval of the interim city manager to enter into the consulting contract with De Novo Planning Group. Do I have a recommendation?
I'll make a motion that we accept item 6.2 as stated.
A second.
We have a motion to approve and a second, item 6.2.
Yes.
Yes.
Cruz.
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Item 6.3, resolution adopting the reimbursement agreement with McRoy Wilbur Communities for funding of the acquisition of well site 11, 6612 Central Avenue at the southeast corner of Santa Fe and Central Avenue, APN 062-020-17, and authorizing the city manager to retain the services of Interwest Consulting Group for the right-of-way agent services, including appraisal of the property.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Well number 11 is an item that city staff and developers have been working on since 2006. Unfortunately, it came to a standstill after the development community began to halt some of its progress due to the downturn in the economy. Now that there's renewed interest in development, and that development is occurring on the east side where well number 11 will exist, we have now reached the point where we need to acquire the actual site for well number 11. So this is the next step in trying to acquire that site. And so John Anderson will present the staff report with regards to the reimbursement agreement with the developers who are required to obtain it.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, John Anderson, planning consultant with City of Riverbank. This is an item that we've talked about a couple different times. This is certainly an obligation of the Bruinville development, the East Riverbank Development Group, initiated back in 2006. And as Maricel has described, it's an obligation that's kind of been carried forward to new development. So we've been waiting for a developer to step forward to assign this obligation to physically fund the acquisition of the well site. We have Mark Wilbur, who's working on Diamond Bar West, who has an obligation in their condition of approval of their project, as well as other projects in the area have the same obligation. It's consistent to fund this effort. Now, a year ago or so, we were asked by Kerry Pope to solicit proposals from right-of-way agents to try to work with the property owner to try to secure the site. So at this point, in order to do this, the city has to use, outside funding. They can't use general fund monies to do this. They have to use, outside monies. And what we're suggesting is it's fee creditable against their impact fees, their water impact fees. So that's the need for this reimbursement agreement. The developer in this case is Mark Wilbur with the Diamond Bar West project, and we've solicited the proposal from the right-of-way agent the city has used in the past to perform this work, which is appraisal, attempt to negotiate acquisition of the site, so the city from their perspective can move forward. Why this property? Well, between the developer's commitment in 2006, 2007, and the city's commitment, there's been a $290,000 investment in this piece of property for advanced engineering for a new domestic water well site, located on this individual's property. The need for the water is not immediate. However, because of the investment that's made, it's our obligation as city staff to make sure that we have control over the property, and we don't have the control over the property right now. So that's why we're going through this effort. The Public Works Department will determine when we need to actually, develop that well site, but at this point we don't need to develop it. It is a costly venture. When and if the site is developed for a municipal water well, that'll be part of the capital improvement program, which is a whole nother process, and it'll be funded through developer contributions through impact fees, which is all part of the system development fee update that we did about a year and a half ago. So it was a pretty complicated process. It is a complicated process, and we really couldn't come forward to your council unless we had a development group willing to make the financial commitment to participate. And that's what this reimbursement agreement is. There's enough money in fee revenue from Mr. Wilbur's project to cover the expenses associated with this effort, and that's why I believe Mr. Wilbur is willing to move forward. So that's what we have in your staff report, in your agenda. You have a draft signature from Mr. Wilbur acknowledging the fact that he had the opportunity to participate in the negotiation of this agreement. The agreement was drafted with the assistant of the city attorney, and it's being presented to you tonight for approval. Are there any questions?
I know the answer to this one, but I want you to explain what would happen if we decided, well, we don't need it and walk away.
Well, if you say, hey, we don't need this site, we have a master plan, right? We have a master plan for everything. This is a master plan for water. We have a number of different new water well sites that we need in order to promote growth and development citywide. I just want to pick on the east side of Riverbank, but citywide. So, and we've made an investment in this particular property. So if we walk away, in my mind, we've walked away from an investment of $290,000. And now we would have to replace that site with another identical site and go through this effort again to prove it out. So whatever the engineering expense would be to prove that out, I'm assuming it'd be more than $290,000. We'd have to go through that effort as well.
Would the city be responsible for the $200,000 that developers have?
Well, the city is the steward of your impact fees. So ultimately, ultimately the city council would make the action to spend the money, just like you're taking an action here. So it's not general fund revenue, it's development impact fee revenue, but it is intended to support the growth and development anticipated, with the new development that's been approved by this council.
Are there any questions of John? Mr. Anderson? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I bring it back to the City Council for approval of item 6.3, the reimbursement agreement with McRoy Wilbur Communities.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve item 6.3.
Second?
We have a motion to approve and a second on item 6.3.
Council members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Item 6.4, resolution adopting the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions related to public artwork.
Mayor and council members, over the course of the past several years, the city has made a significant investment in public art, including the murals that are located here in our downtown area. There's murals located at our sports complex and within our Crossroads development. The intent of our discussion tonight is to provide the city with a mechanism to be able to preserve the city's investment in that public art, especially those that are located on privately owned property. We currently do have 3 murals downtown that are located on privately owned business property, and we would like to be able to discuss the preservation of that public art should the property transfer hands. And so this item has been presented in the past to the City Council. It's being brought forward for reconsideration with some changes made based on comments received back in 2015 when this item first came to you. And so John Anderson will present this item once again to the City Council.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, John Anderson, planning consultant, City of Riverbank. As Maricel has described, we're not in a rush to do this effort. It is a voluntary program. Council has previously deliberated on this over a year ago, October 27, 2015, and at that time asked us to soften some of the more obtrusive language in the covenants. We've done that. We've actually worked with city management team and as well as the city attorney to soften up those language. But it really, in the end of the day, it becomes a voluntary commitment between a private property owner and the city to preserve and protect these types of public arts that we're seeing that are installed not only on buildings but in certain areas. So I'm going to go through a kind of a brief PowerPoint on this item. So the project consists of the following: adoption of a resolution suggesting draft declaration of covenants, codes, and restrictions related to public art. They govern the use of real property. They refer to a promise or an agreement concerning the use of land. And then goes on to say that for public art, CCR can be used as a binding agreement between a property owner and the city to protect public art from being removed or modified prior to city council approval. And then it requires consent of both the property owner and the city. So we're not forcing this on individual property owners. So you have the Plaza del Rio mural, which fortunately we have an operator that owns this building that quite frankly, I think her views and consideration for the city are as consistent with what this council is wanting to do. So, here's an opportunity that we might have, if they're willing, to use this as a tool to protect and preserve, this type of public mural. We've got the firefighters mural is another example. So, and we like to promote more of these. I mean, that's the idea: promote it and protect it and preserve it. Again, on October 27th, this council, after duly noticed public hearing, considered this item and, quite frankly, referred it back to staff for additional work. So that's what we've been doing, and we brought it back to you to soften, in an effort to soften the language that was originally presented. So we removed the original requirements such as insurance, and we also, and the inspection requirements, which could have been onerous for any individual property owners. So I guess unless, again, we're not in a hurry with this, so if you've had a chance to look at the draft CCNRs that we presented, great. If you've got some suggested language changes you'd like us to make, I mean, that'd be fine. Kind of the way I look at this, because it's a voluntary agreement, this is kind of serves as a basis upon which we could offer this up to private property owners, and it probably will be changed depending on what their lifestyle conditions are, or what what types of public art are being displayed, or what their individual circumstances might be. So the idea is it's a shell document, and we're not forcing it on anybody by any means, and it's a negotiated agreement. I mean, that's the bottom line. So anyway, so after having said that, it's been a while since we've talked about this issue, and you've got the language in front of you. Maybe there still is some questions about the language that's been presented, but this is the forum upon which we are to discuss it. So here we are.
Well, I don't have questions right now about the language, but I would like to know if there's an issue with graffiti, whose responsibility is it to have the graffiti removed?
It'd be the responsibility of the property owner, based on the covenants.
A couple of things that are available to the property owner is a coating that repels graffiti. If you remember, the murals around the roundabout at Crossroads at Homeward and Crawford was just painted red. It was removed just by wiping. So that is available, and there's things like that we can talk with the property owners.
So is that coating currently on the buildings now?
Go ahead.
On the murals now?
Yes, currently all of the murals that the city has do have that special coating on it that we would be able to easily remove any graffiti.
So again, the responsibility to have it removed would be the property owner, and they would just have to just wipe it down.
If that were what was negotiated. At this time, the city has been maintaining that.
Okay.
But we haven't had, luckily, we haven't had any graffiti on the murals that we've had here in downtown.
That's good.
And each quarter I get to visit businesses, and a couple of them that have large sides of buildings that are exposed, especially on First Street at 108. They had asked if we had a mural, could it be added? And I said, well, yeah. I mean, heck, anything to do to make that corridor look a lot better, I mean, I'm all for it. So this could also be an impetus to allow additional artwork, but then I would hate to have an art committee to review to make sure the art is acceptable. But, that could be a growth out of it, which I don't think we need to handle.
I think the intent is to have it be a shared relationship between the property owner that's willing to make the commitment in the city. And so if there's advice that we can give the property owner or the artist that's performing the work, to preserve it, with the coatings or whatever, I mean, we're going to be there to help that. I mean, it's small. I mean, Riverbank's a small city. That's what we're here for. So,
John, I have a couple questions. One, in what I read, you said that the city of Downey was the only city that you found that really had any CCRs related to this particular subject.
yeah.
And if we pass these CCRs, point of clarification, if I may, say the owners don't want to do it, are they still going to have to do it?
No, it's voluntary. It's totally voluntary. And so the CCNRs that we presented here tonight, are their draft. I mean, just like the agreements, the two agreements that I brought to you previously on those two items, I mean, those agreements took months to negotiate between, the city attorney and the developers that are making the commitment. And they're tailored, they're crafted to what the individual needs are. The overall goal and objective behind having this basic set of framework is to protect it, right? Is to preserve this public art and and in some cases, help beautify the city in certain areas, But it requires cooperation between the property owner and the city. It just doesn't happen on its own.
You know if in Downey it's a voluntary thing even though they have their CCRs?
I believe it's voluntary as well.
Knowledge,
Yes.
has it worked with them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes. That's the only way it really works.
And the mechanics of this, what department of the city would be oversight?
Well,
Who can-
we're a small
who can we
city.
task?
We're a small city, so many of the departments are involved in all aspects of things. So I would say it's going to be, planning and public works and engineering services that'll be involved. I'm almost positive.
Not the, well, let's say we make a,
It could be finance. We can make it
No,
finance.
I was thinking
We
the
can make it a
assistant-
finance
assistant
obligation.
city
That'd be
manager.
fine for me.
he doesn't have enough to do.
Oh, that's, anyway. So, no, it'd be a combined
do.
effort.
Go ahead.
I gotta speak my mind, and although I think the art is beautiful, I really do, and I appreciate all the pieces of art murals that we have out here, but I just struggle a little bit, here we go, with telling property owners what they can or can't do with their own property. And I just have to throw it out there that I personally don't think that we as the city should be putting those kind of demands on property owners. And I may not be in the majority here, but that's just what I want to say tonight. And I mean, I would hate for it to come down to, I know we already have issues with downtown and out of town people owning buildings that are, have sat vacant for a long time, and we've had some issues there. I would hate for it to come down and having that building say someone wants to put an offer on it, but really does not like the piece of art on the side of it. I would hate to have that be an issue for someone. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I can't stand the art or have anything against beautifying our city. That's not where I'm at all. I just struggle with the piece of us putting restrictions on property owners, and that's just,
Well,
I wanted to throw that out there.
in the context that you described, if a previous property owner agrees and commits to the CC&Rs, then a subsequent owner would be bound by those obligations. You're right.
Putting
You're absolutely
restrictions on the
you're
property
absolutely
owners.
correct. We're putting restrictions
I struggle with this a little
on
bit.
a subsequent property owner that are placed by agreement on the prior owner, and that prior agreement was negotiated between the prior owner and the city.
And I have to speak for myself, and being a person that now has a business downtown, that would weigh on my mind if I was purchasing a building down here. It would. I just have to throw it out there.
Well, I mean, the other fallback position is that you continue to make it voluntary, which is what we've done so far. And you don't have an instrument like what we're suggesting, where we have a draft set of CC&Rs that can be negotiated, and it's just a voluntary program. That's certainly up to the council. We're here just to respond to questions and comments that we've heard, and trying to protect and preserve what you've seen.
Based on what you just said to me a few minutes ago, it is voluntary.
It is,
Even if we
it's
pass
totally
the
voluntary.
CCRs.
But
If they don't wanna do it, they don't
but it's
have to.
voluntary, it's voluntary to the original individuals
But
that
not
make
further
the
on down the
commitment.
line,
But when
so-
you go through a purchase and sale and you get a new owner, then they are bound, they're covenanted to protect and preserve based on the prior agreement. Understood. That's exactly the way it would work. Understood.
Hard time with.
Understood. Any other questions?
No, but I have
Okay.
seen artwork just totally destroyed without any consideration for the art itself. It would be a good way to control how you demolish sections of the city. For example, in San Francisco, when they took over some houses that had some beautiful artworks of whales and whatever else was on it, bulldozed over. So do we want to protect it or not? Voluntary CCR for the original owner, and they're thinking, I want to preserve this as the original owner. So if someone else coming on in who doesn't want to, they don't have the commitment, then they really don't want the total package. There was some artwork, you mentioned the one on Stanford, of a metallic structure artwork, and it's beautiful. There was something there beforehand that was just removed about 20 years ago, and it was just discarded. So what do we want to do with the art? Not only is it protecting what's on the private building, but it's also what's protecting out in throughout the city where we have a person reading a book. The book's gone, but it's there, or the oars on the rafters. We want to protect it. I believe that I've come around to believe that voluntary with the original owner, then it becomes part of the building. Just as if I put an addition onto my home, it becomes part of that home. So that's what they're doing. They're putting that addition onto the home or to the building. And that's how I'm seeing it. And again, it's voluntary for the current owners, and if they choose not to, at some point in time, they can just say, well, I'm going to just paint part of that off. We have no say over it.
And on the other hand, I'm not trying to argue with you. I completely understand that. But what happens if you have some artwork, say some graffiti, not graffiti type, graffiti art. Say we have some mural put on the side of the building that you might not like. It might appeal to somebody else, but that you might not. And we have CCNRs for that. I mean, we have to live with some of that forever and ever. It's kind of a matter of taste. And I'm not sure I explained that correctly.
But that would have to be voluntary from the city standpoint, too. Because you make a submission, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be approved. That's one. And no matter what we have written here, if I want to change it, if I'm the property owner saying, hey, I'm going to do great things with that building, but I don't like the terrain over the top, and they can also make a submission to the future city council, and it can be modified at that point. Anything we do, unfortunately, we do it great. Someone can undo down the road, right?
You
Right?
can get a waiver for just about anything.
Yes, you can.
I have a couple other comments. It says here in this proposal that the property owner has to have a public liability policy. And then the other question I have is I realize I support the art, but I sort of understand totally what Councilmember Jones-Cruz is talking about. Another thing that bothers me is the maintenance. Is that going to be dumped on to the building owner also to maintain that art as is, if it needs repair and that type of things?
Campbell, that was, that'd be the intent. I mean, they'd have to maintain it as well. I mean, but again, it's a contractual commitment between two parties, so it'll be defined, in these CCNRs as to what the commitments are. These are just draft form, but the intent is, yes, that they would be maintaining it. Are they able to change it? I mean, by council approval, yes. So if you had a property owner that wasn't, if you had a prospective property purchaser that wasn't happy with the art on the building but loved the building, that would be a condition of sale. I would imagine that, there would be some type of arrangement with city council that they can change the art or eliminate the art or whatever it would be. But that would be, that would be between those two parties, and ultimately the council would have to rule.
Would it be reasonable to say, for the city to be in that way? I know how tight money is, and this is something down the road possibly, but as far as, say, that insurance policy and the maintenance, of the particular art, that somehow the city help with that funding, because it is going to make our city better too. But I don't know if that's something reasonable or not.
You know, that, boy, with funds being as short as they are right now, I don't.
I know right now.
I don't
I'm looking
see
down-
that.
down the
I
road
don't see
further.
that. You know, there may be, you know, some kind of an arts committee or council down the road that's somehow able to get, you know, foundation dollars donated to them to help with this effort, but that's way down the line. That's something that's not part of this effort at this point.
Thank you.
So, and maybe it's premature. I mean, the bottom line is maybe this whole discussion is premature. I mean, you've got City of Modesto with a lot of the mural art in the downtown core area, and they really don't have anything like this, you know, to help protect, preserve it. I don't know. It's, you know, it's, each city deals with it differently. And it really all depends on, you know, what your intent is now and in the future and trying to protect and preserve some of these, you know, what are becoming assets to the city, so. Anyway.
And certainly, if the council were to adopt this and through the negotiations with the property owner, would be the discussion about whether it was the city who was initiating the public artwork and funding the initial painting of it and maintenance of it for a certain period of time, or if it's the property owner who's initiating that request and you know, requesting the city council to be for them to be allowed to place some public art. So that's definitely a point of consideration that the council should consider once, if this is adopted, whether it would be the city maintaining it because it was a city-initiated project or if it was a property owner initiated project.
Currently, we maintain.
Currently, we do maintain all of the murals that are located on private property.
And have we had to go back and, like, touch up, do some repainting or anything like that?
Not that I
Any of
can
them?
recall on any of the downtown ones. As the mayor mentioned, there have been some that have been graffitied. There's been graffiti done to the murals that are located at our Castleberg Park, and so those have had to been repainted, but otherwise I don't recall any other incidences.
The coating that is placed on the top of the murals, the guaranteed lasts for 25 years. They say it's going to be a lot longer than that, and it helps prevent deterioration due to weathering and sunlight. So I asked for this to be brought back because I had a change in heart, and I think that it's a good starting point, that when we go for CCRs with the owner of the property, this isn't in stone. They might even have that as a caveat. If I sell the property, can they negotiate a new CCR? And that can be part of it, the CCRs, that they negotiate, depending on how much the property owner truly wants that mural. So, and it's a flexible process. The only thing is that I just don't want to have a piece of art removed. Oh, where did that go? Okay. So, this is a public meeting. Are there any public comments on this? Seeing none, I bring it back to the City Council to make a recommendation on item 6.4.
Council can also choose to table this item should you like any further research done or some further reconsideration of the items that were presented.
I'd like them to propose a continuance.
Yeah, I'd like to propose a continuance.
And I got that, so I'm going to take that as a second to continue item 6.4.
Thank you.
Council members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz, Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0 to continue the item.
It just, for the record, it's being tabled in effect. It's not a public hearing. You don't need to do a re-noticing or anything, so it'll just come back whenever you ask.
Maybe we should talk about that in a strategic planning session in the future. Item 6.5, Riverbank Cheese and Wine Festival 3-year evaluation.
Mayor and City Council members, tonight Sue Fitzpatrick, our Director of Parks and Recreation, will provide you with a 3-year progress report of our Cheese and Wine Festival, which celebrated its 40th year this year.
Mayor and members of the council, about 3 years ago, we were faced with the decision whether or not to take over the Cheese and Wine Festival because it was at risk of being discontinued. And I know we weighed that decision heavily. And so it's been 3 years. I wanted to go back and kind of report on how we've done both operationally and financially, and then receive direction on what the community and council would like to do from here. So just a quick history for those maybe not familiar is the Riverbank Cheese and Wine Festival has been in Riverbank for 40 years, just celebrated the 40th anniversary. The festival was administered by the Chamber of Commerce for many years, most of those years. The Riverbank Rotary Club took that over. They purchased the festival from the Chamber of Commerce and operated it for about 8 years. And then they, in about the end of 2013, felt they were no longer able to do that. So that's when the city came in and was faced with the decision whether to take it over or maybe let it go. So that's kind of where we were. So the 3 years that we've operated the festival, in 2014, we did decide to purchase the festival from the Rotary Club. The city contracted with Chris Ricky Presents to be the promoter for the festival because our staff is so small. The event was moved downtown because for most of the years it was down by the community center. So it was moved downtown to just be able to celebrate, the renovation of our downtown. And the wine tasting venue was challenging, but organizers learned from the first event. So it was a large event to take on. We did learn a lot the first year, but it was overall successful. In 2015, we went ahead and continued with the contract with Chris Ricky Presents. The wine tasting venue was moved to the Masonic Hall, and it was more successful. That was a good move. The community seemed to enjoy the event. So again, overall, we were doing pretty good. This past year, it was the 40th anniversary. We contracted for the 3rd year with Chris Ricky Presents. We continued the wine tasting venue at the same place, Masonic Hall. And again, overall, the event was safe and it was successful. So looking at the finances, we did purchase the event from the Rotary Club for $15,000. So far, we've paid $9,000 of that. At $3,000 per year, we will be paid in full by 2018. And in that agreement, just as a reminder that if we were to discontinue the festival, we don't have to pay that debt. So it's only if we continue the festival. The balance to date in the Cheese and Wine account is $9,255. A lot of the discussion when we talked about taking on the festival was that it was a risk, and we didn't know if we would be able to pull it off without using general fund money, or if we would do okay. So I'm happy to report that we didn't have to use any general fund money. So we did well financially. The Director of Parks and Recreation spends most time on the event with minimal time spent by the Parks Supervisor, Administrative Clerk, and part-time staff. Public Works staff and finance hours are spent at a minimal level. So for the most part, we did think we would contract it out and not have to spend as much time, but I found it does require quite a bit of time, mainly because I do want to make sure it is a successful event. So I do tend to maybe spend more time than I need to, but I did feel that was necessary. So just some of the options for the future, I know there are others too, but just to start us off is to continue the festival for 2 more years and evaluate again, discontinue the event and try something new as the annual event, or sell or transfer the event ownership to another organization and discontinue the city administering the event. I'm going to come back to this slide, but just as a recommendation, if we do decide to continue to administer the event, a suggestion is maybe that the city take over the vendor component, because that seems to be the component that needs some attention. I did talk to a lot of the vendors over the past couple years. I think maybe improving communication, lowering the craft booth fees to bring back some of the craft, homemade craft type of vendors is something that a lot of people would like to see. And then maybe moving the venue to the Antigua Event Center, which we have toured that site, and that seems like it would be a step up for the event, for the wine tasting portion of it. So just listing the options again so we can kind of talk and see what everyone feels might be the best thing to do from here. Is there any input?
Does it have to be a 2-day event?
Chris Ricky thinks it does, mainly because of the effort that it takes just to bring everything in. We have talked about that, and he feels it is, but it would be up to you.
That was just a question.
Yeah.
No matter if we sell it or we do something else with it, your dedication to making sure it's a good event I don't see changing your input into it at all. You're that type of person.
Right. I know when Rotary was running the event in the chamber, I was here, and Parks and Rec didn't have much oversight. I mean, we made sure that the insurance was in place and things like that, but, so I'm not sure how that would be, but I know that when we are in charge of it, I do tend to pay more attention, especially with the financial. I was really worried about the financial end of things.
Would you have Chris Ricky or somebody else coordinate the event, or would it be a totally city function?
I don't think it could be a totally city function. I don't think our staff is large enough. I think we need someone like Chris Ricky with the connections and the know-how, especially with the alcohol component. Parks and Rec, normally we don't get involved in that extent of, and I don't think we can with the alcohol sales. So that whole portion of it is very much in need of somebody with the ABC license and the ability to do all of the winery contacts and all of that.
What's your preference of the three your suggestions? What do you think is the best?
My recommendation would be how I evaluated is I was here most of the day. I can't say I was here at midnight when they were setting up or when they locked up at 10 p.m. But I was here and I looked at I watched the community. They seemed to be enjoying the event. It was safe. I think it was a good family event. I think that the community would miss it if we didn't keep it going. I know that the chief, is he here? Yeah, thinks it was safe, and it was probably more well run this past year than most. So those are good things. Financially, we're okay so far. So my recommendation would be to continue it, and I'll try to back out of it a little bit as I can, just to be able to spend more time on grants and things like that. And I'll let Chief talk too.
Yeah, from a public safety standpoint, it's probably been the last 3 years probably been the most peaceful events that I can recall. I know I've worked the event as a deputy, as a sergeant, over the past 8 years, I believe, off and on. And we usually have a fist fight or two and more public drunkenness, and it's basically been void of those things the last few years. So it's been a very well-run event in terms of alcohol management from a public safety standpoint.
Any other questions?
No, just a comment. This is the one thing that Riverbank is known for the last 40 years, and I think we should continue it. That's my 2 cents.
I think we should continue it also, but I'm not sure about, if we should continue with the same parties. Maybe we should look at another party. I haven't seen him, in my mind's eye. It's been successful, but over the 3 years, I don't think he's attained the goal that we wanted to make it a more homey craft type, fair, activity. And so your suggestion too about taking it over by the city and lowering the craft foods fees, I like that, because I've heard a lot of the vendors say that our crafts, it's too expensive, and somehow I'd like to see that come back into play with it. So, but then I'm concerned about you trying to take it over totally, because I just don't know if you have the time to do it, and I understand that. So we need to come to some kind of a compromise in there.
Yeah, one thing is for the vendor part of it, the vendor coordinators, that is a subcontract. So we are already paying for that. So what we can do is take that money, keep it here, and increase our staff a little bit for the period of time that we're dealing with the vendors. So that might be, and it's always a risk. We're going to take that risk. Are we going to be successful or not? But at least we can take one step in that direction that we know we want to improve in that area, is have better craft vendors, have a lower fee to attract them, and increase the quality of the venue. Being at the Antigua, it's very nice. So maybe one step up and evaluate next year and see if we did accomplish those two goals at least.
Comments, questions?
I want to make sure I understand the whole payback. We have 2 more payments? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that that I'm clear on this. We have 2 more payments to the Rotary for $3,000.
Correct.
6,000 total
Correct.
for the rest of it. So we are required to pay that regardless if we run it or not. Did I get that right or wrong?
Wrong. We are required to pay it if we continue with the festival.
Okay.
If we sell it, or I don't know if we sell it, probably if we transferred it.
Then that goes with the
Yeah, if
whoever picks it up, if someone picks it up.
No, I don't think so. I think once the city's not involved in the festival, we are no longer responsible for any payment, and I don't think anybody else would be either.
I missed that in the report. I read that incorrectly. Okay. No, I think it said it up there, but I had it in my notes as something differently, so I just wanted to clarify that. Okay?
Yeah.
Right.
When I have the public speak? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this?
I think one thing that you really need to consider, whether it's Chris Reese or somebody else, is do we, as a city, if we took the whole thing over, have that set of connections? I worked with it with the former Chamber of Commerce, and the person there worked on it the whole time. So that's the only problem I see. We seem to have trouble within the city trying to get things advertised and so on. There's a lot of events that are pretty good, and we don't get the people to come. So I think Chris had that reach. Now, whether he's the guy or he does part of it, or we do just the vendors or whatever it is, but I think that has to be looked at.
Any further public comment? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council. You mentioned advertisement. I searched for advertisement this year and found very little.
I agree with you. And that is something we will definitely change up, because I felt the same way. If I wasn't here in the office, I don't know that I would have known the festival was going to happen. So that's another thing that we will definitely work on, because I totally agree.
And are we going to retain, this is up to you. Are we going to retain Chris? Are we going to go with an RFP for someone to is he willing just to do the wine and cheese portion of it, not the vendors? That doesn't include the beer and craft beers and wines, does it?
Yeah, that includes all of that. The only part that we do a lot together, but the part that we would change out is the vendor coordination. But he would do the rest of the festival, the promotion of the rest of the festival. But I think we will change out how we do the advertising, because it wasn't successful.
Okay. Okay.
Is there any consideration to send out a RFP for another person,
We could.
the organization?
We could. I don't know, to be honest, if we would have much response, and we might be wasting the time where we need to get moving. But if council's direction is to do that, we could do that. The only other problem with that might be that we've learned and we've made this progress over the past 3 years. It might be with somebody new starting over again with that learning curve, but either way, it's up to council's direction.
We did happen, if Chris Ricky just did certain things instead of everything, would his fees be negotiated in a different manner?
Yeah, the promoter fee would stay the same. Like I said, some of the other fees that we pay out are subcontracts, which the vendor coordination was a subcontract. So as long as we weren't taking something that he was already paid for, the subcontract and some of the others, the publicity, advertising, those are all subcontracted out.
We would get that monetarily.
Yeah, the 6,000 then which we'd pay out to vendor coordinators, we would keep, and we would be able to use that to our benefit to accomplish that goal.
I'm for the 2 years and evaluate again.
I'll go with that.
I'm for option 1 also.
I am too. I just would like to see us get a new. I understand get a new organization or new person. That's what I'm thinking, because I had quite my own personal feelings towards some things that happened.
And with Sue taking care of a lot of the subcontracting, that should go away. That should be minimized.
I'll try my best to make that happen. Okay.
I trust Sue.
Thank you.
I do too. It was. I can truly say the whole event itself to me was very, very good this year, and I had a lot of positive comments. It's just some of the other things I had some issues with.
And share those with me so that I could work on those.
I sure will.
Okay.
I have a few too.
Okay. Sure.
But thank you very much for all your hard work and the staff for that.
So direction has been provided to staff. All right, item 6.6, annual nomination and appointment of the vice mayor. Since Vice Mayor Tucker is now gone, and I feel that there are things that are happening personally that I like to make sure that we have a direct head after if something should happen. And I would like to nominate Councilmember Leanne Jones-Cruz as the vice mayor for the next year. Is there any second?
I'll second it.
Good.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Jones-Cruz.
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Continuing on, staff comments, item 7.1.
Just a few staff comments tonight, Mayor. We do have some upcoming office closures which will affect our residents. We will be closed this Friday as part of our 980 alternative work schedule, and City Hall will also be closed the week of December 26th through the 30th for the holidays. I do want to take the time to congratulate you, Mayor, and Councilmember Barbara Martinez on your reelection to the City Council. The staff and I look forward to working with you for another 4 years.
Thank you.
I also want to take this opportunity, since it is our last regularly scheduled City Council meeting, to thank the City Council, the Mayor, and all of the residents of Riverbank and the staff for allowing me to be your interim city manager during this time. I appreciate all of the confidence and the opportunities that you've provided to me, and I continue to look forward to working with you in the capacity that you see fit. and just a happy holiday to everybody. And then we have Donna, who will be giving an update on some work being done over at Home Depot that residents will most likely note pretty soon.
Happy holidays, Mayor and council members. I was recently contacted by the company that does the maintenance and care of the Home Depot site. They have informed me that the row of redwoods that is between their site and the block wall with homeowners on the other side along Squire Wells, 11 of those redwood trees have died, and another 6 are all but dead. And there's a possibility it's either due to the drought or due to disease. So they want to work toward replacing those trees. We have contacted Chris of Grover to go out and take a look at those trees to try to determine if it was disease or something. That would kind of give us a heads up on other trees in the area that we might possibly be responsible for. But they do want to replace those trees, and I've provided them with the city's recently adopted street tree list, which gives a really good indication of height and canopy and whether it's not for shade or for accent. And so they will be working with Chris of Grover to determine what an appropriate tree is to replace. And whenever Home Depot does landscaping, they always go with the 24-inch box tree, which is a large tree, and we do appreciate that. So sometime in the upcoming weeks, there will be some tree cutting going on over there, and I just kind of wanted to give you and the community a heads up on what that's all about.
We don't do community outreach for private, but is there any, I know you're saying we're informing the community. How are we informing them? Is
Well,
it through here and our website, or, I mean,
It would be through both, and if the city desires, I could have the management company go door to door and leave a flyer or a door hanger to kind of give the community a heads up, especially the houses that back up to Home Depot. Maybe we can give them a week, 2 weeks
they're not
notice.
required to do that, though.
No, they aren't.
They're not required to do so, but we can possibly contact the HOA that manages
Very
that
good.
area
Do that.
and advise them of the work
And they
that's to be done.
can use
Yes.
their, okay.
All right. Thank you so much, and happy holidays.
And to you. Any further comments?
That concludes staff comments.
Right. For council comments, Councilmember Campbell.
I just want to thank the staff for a great year. You've put in a lot of time, done a wonderful job, and this council, I feel, has done likewise. And I'm looking forward to the coming year and getting into some new territories. And I want to wish the public a happy holidays and a safe holiday.
Thank you. Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
I have a couple reminders that the Riverbank Toys for Tots giveaway is this Saturday, December 17th from 1 to 4 at our Cardosa Middle School. Senior Brunch Fridays Holiday Luncheon is this Friday, December 16th from 10 to 12. Excuse me. I also want to thank the staff for an awesome year, and also my fellow council members, and also thank the staff for an awesome Christmas parade. The rain held off. I got soaked as we were trying to take down our tent, but anyway. But thank you for, a wonderful event, and also for the community coming out to the parade. And happy holidays to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to congratulate our new council members and mayor this evening. And thank you for your vote of confidence as vice mayor. I look forward to serving you all in that capacity. I just wanted to thank the staff for everything they've done this past year and look forward to a new year, and wanted to wish everybody happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to first thank the council, not only for this last year, but for what we've been doing for the last 3 to 4 years. Some of our work started 4 years ago in organizing our planning documents. Our Nexus fee took a long time, but we finally got that out. And then if you saw today, some of the work that's going on and how all of our painful efforts are now coming to some type of fruition. And I want to thank you for that hard work, and there's still a lot more to do over the next couple of years. I also want to thank the staff for your patience with us up here and also in behind the scenes, where we sometimes are more directive than we should be. But thank you for your patience and responding appropriately and telling us what we can't do forcefully. And I look forward to the new year. I'm wishing everyone a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, and all the other religious holidays. And I look forward to the new year because there are some major movements happening, which you already can guess, with the Crossroads West, with the Bruinsville, with the River, and then with annexations coming on up. That's going to be a lot of work going to the LAFCO board, and that work has to start now because we may have another city directly to our south may have some opposition to a lot of the things that we're doing positively for the city, and I believe it's because they have not been able to move forward. With that, I'd like to again thank the residents for their confidence in the city council, and I appreciate their inputs, whether it's by phone call at 2 in the morning or coming by with a finger in the chest. I get your inputs, and I do appreciate it. With that, we're going to go to closed session consisting of item 8.1, conference with labor negotiators. Pursuant to Government Code 54957.6, Agency Representative Maricela Garcia, Interim City Manager, Employee Organizations, Riverbank Miscellaneous Employees, Riverbank Mid-Management Bargaining Group. At this time, anyone from the public may comment on item 8.1. You have a maximum of 5 minutes to comment prior to us going into closed session. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we are now in closed session. The regular City Council and Local Redevelopment meeting is now resumed. From closed session, item 9. Report from closed session, item 9.1. Report on closed session, item 8.1. Conference with labor negotiator. Direction has been provided to staff. With that, the City Council meeting is now adjourned. Thank you. Have a good evening.
I told my wife it.